Hey, it's Soul, and today I'm going to give a spoiler-free overview of what's going on in patch 9.1's outdoor and solo content. You know, the things that you do when it's not raid nights, when your dungeon or PvP buddies aren't on, or if you're just having a bad day in the pug world, but you want something to do in WoW apart from the mission table and the anima farm. Or maybe a more practical answer, maybe just outdoor/solo content is all that you care about, and 9.0 has you feeling a little bit burned. This is the video for you. And for the rest of you who are hoping for something else, I warned you. This is an overview based on the PTR, so I'm not going to get too far into the gritty details knowing that they're going to change, but I hope that I can paint a clear, if not accurate, picture of what's to come so you can decide for yourself if this next chapter of Shadowlands is for you. 9.1 has an 8-chapter campaign that is shared regardless of the covenant that you chose. Spoilers aside, this campaign is going to tie up a few loose ends from the individual covenant campaigns, and it's going to lead us into an uncertain future. Early in the campaign, though, we get the good stuff. We get these quality of life perks and the lifting of hindrances. At the end of Chapter 2 of the campaign, the Korthia zone will be unlocked. The Maw will be fully accessible, and the Eye of the Jailer is basically gone. By the end of Chapter 3, you will earn flying across your account, and just about all the content of 9.1 will begin to blossom. We should start with what's going on in the Maw first. With the Eye of the Jailer gone, the Maw has become a bit more of a standard zone plus playground. The weekly quests that Venari used to provide appear to be gone, but with some welcome trade-offs. Players are able to go ham on rares and events and treasures with impunity. No longer do you have to skip rares or areas because it counted towards your Eye of the Jailer thing. The dailies are still around but have been updated. They give additional reputation and new rewards, including this stuff, Maw-touched gear, which I'm gonna touch on later. To encourage a bit of participation from those of us who are already at max rep with Venari, she now offers Paragon reputation, along with a box of surprises. A new event called the Tormentors of Torghast will be available every few hours. It works pretty much the same way as the Wrath of the Jailer event, just with different mobs, but more importantly, rewards like cosmetic shoulders and gear. But there's still more. Covenant assaults will pester them all on a consistent, bi-weekly basis, similar to patch 8.3's Old God invasions and the hunts over in the Beast Warrens. Each of the 4 covenants will be assaulting certain locations, providing daily quests and helpful buffs to take on bad guys all over the Maw. Completing the series of quests will award another box of goodies, including more gear and more helpful items. So there are fewer reasons to avoid going into the Maw and new reasons to dive in. The events that you're sort of likely to graduate from first include the Venari dailies, the hunts, and the rares. On the longer term, you may continue to run each of the Covenant assaults and the Tormentors of Torghast events every week to pick up Soul Cinders, which is what you need to upgrade legendaries past level 4. I'll have more on that a little bit later. Korthia is technically part of the Maw, but it feels so different that it might as well be in a separate instance. At the time of this writing, Korthia is missing a few key components, but I'll try to speak to them as best I can. Players will be introduced into Korthia early, and this isn't exactly a spoiler, but all the Covenants are going to show up here too. Every day, a different series of quests will be offered by one or more of the Covenants. It's going to have a familiar feel to Mechagon's dailies, because there's also an overarching weekly quest to complete that awards a really big box of goodies. With Korthia comes a new reputation, Death's Advance, which at one point had an accessible vendor which sold mounts, as well as one of the tints of the Covenant armor sets featured during BlizzCon Line. That set could be purchased at Exalted Reputation. Reaching Exalted is also part of a 9.1 meta achievement that awards one of the several hand-shaped mounts coming out in this patch. The real meat of Korthia, though, probably comes from what is currently called the Archivist Codex, probably located here in the Korthia questing hub. From the sounds of it, it's a tech tree that players will pour relics into, and from that you get these catalog research points that'll let you progress through a tree and upgrade the Maw-touched items that I mentioned earlier. Right now we can only guess what the research gives. It could be zone buffs, special items, a cheese sandwich, whatever, but gear upgrades are easy enough to understand. With some elbow grease, players will be able to upgrade these pieces to just below the item level of heroic rating, which is far better than the pitiful normal raid item level from 9.0. Speculation aside, this means that there's going to be a lot of activity in Korthia, and maybe the mod too, for whatever the Archivist needs. You can expect an extensive guide on how this is going to work in the near future. To sum up this zone though, there's going to be a few milestones to hit, including reaching Exalted with the Death's Advanced faction, obtaining rare items from outdoor content, but working research and upgrading gear is likely to be the long-term farm all the way until the next season. But what about the original zones, the older content from 9.0? Well, a lot of that is going to be made much easier to do for mains and alts thanks to flying, which all players will have access to after completing Chapter 3 of the Domination campaign. So far, neither the Covenant Sanctum nor Anima rewards have been expanded upon, which may or may not please you. I mentioned earlier that Renown is going to expand, meaning the old weekly quests of fetching 1,000 Anima and saving 20-something souls for Renown. That might still be a thing, but we should also be pretty familiar with how Renown catch-ups work, but also be prepared for a new sort of weekly thing. Renown will do a bit more for player power than it did in 9.0. Renown will not only make soul bind trees longer, but it will also empower conduit slots along the way. There are also 2 Renown upgrades that will increase the number of Anima rewards that we get from world quests, and upgrades to world quest rewards themselves, just hopefully not as strong as fully upgraded mod-touched gear. There are also adventure upgrades dotted along the Renown path, but I imagine they unlock additional difficulty and reward levels past the current maximum campaign level of 20. We can probably expect a few recolors of mounts and maybe another Covenant outfit from here. Now let's circle back to Torghast. The twisting corridors haven't been touched, but additional features have been added to the cell blocks. In 9.1, you'll chance upon an item called the Box of Many Things, which adds a critical element that Torghast really needed: progression. I ran into this during a climb, and it's likely that players will find this on their first climb of the patch. This box will unlock a research tree similar to the likes of Horrific Visions or the Deaths of Chromie scenario. After every completed climb, you earn tower research to do all sorts of things like grant blessings. It's kind of like torment, but for the enemy. You'll get ways to strengthen the character when they have a kill streak thing called being empowered. It'll make them more powerful against elites and bosses, and it'll give them access to some really fun tools that you can buy from the brokers. And you're going to need these, thanks to the increased difficulty and requirements in Torghast. For example, you're going to get new floor types and layouts. Torments have been reworked to torment you at higher layers, and an additional 4 layers have been added for some extra difficulty. A new scoring system has also been added as mostly a measurement of how flawless you can be at a Torghast climb, with a pretty cool looking mount at the very end if you can manage a flawless run of every cell block at the highest difficulty. And a lot of rewards are being added so far in the form of shoulders, tons of shoulders, you know what I mean? Shoulders that drop from the final bosses of a cell block, shoulders that you can buy from the brokers too. Player habits in Torghast will prioritize 2 things early on. That's Soul Cinders, which drop from the higher layers from Torghast, and it's the currency for higher level legendaries, and Tower Research Points, or Tower Knowledge. At the moment, Tower Knowledge, like Valor and Conquest, is capped per week, and it goes up each reset. You can run Torghast until you collect every set of shoulders in a single day, but you'll only be able to progress down that research tree at a certain pace. No doubt that all but the toughest players and the most meta of classes will be able to complete Layer 12 early, and in the meantime, most of us are going to be relying on progressing down that tree. In the long-ish term though, consider the many achievements that were added in the PTR that they were considered feats of strength. So is Torghast also going to adopt a seasonal sort of reward structure to spice up the regular farming of Soul Ash and Soul Cinders? Maybe, or player interest may expire as soon as that last pair of shoulders is obtained. I think of past 0.1 patches, and thankfully this one seems pretty meaty. And I didn't even mention the big 3, as in, the new Mega Dungeon, the new Raid, the PvP season, and all of the additions and changes happening there. What does 9.1 give solo players? It gives them a revamped Maw, making it into a kind of playground zone. They get the subzone of Korthia. There's incremental progression systems in Maw-touched gear and Torghast. There's a ton of rewards that I only scratched the surface on, and there's more renown levels to power up your character. And then there's that on top of the boatload of anima rewards and everything else that's following us from 9.0. My personal take on this, though, it would have been nice, right? It would have been nice if this much care went into 9.0, but that's water under the bridge at this point, and I think that there's a lot to look forward to. As the patch gets closer, expect more detailed guides to help you not get lost, so be sure to subscribe to this channel and like the video if it was informative. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.